point. Now, Honorable Railway Minister, please. हो गया ना? आप ले करिए जल्दी.
Madam, I am of course thankful to you for giving me this opportunity to reply to such a very interesting, very engaging and very enlightening debate that took place in the last 2 days in this August House. And I am very glad to see that almost more than half of the House participated in this debate. That shows the type of involvement that each of the members of this August House, the honourable members of the Parliament belonging to Lok Sabha, have in the railways. So I really first of all thank each one of you, those who participated either speaking or by presenting or by listening to this debate in the last 2 days, have shown a keen interest in railways. So on behalf of railway family, let me thank each one of you for being so engaged in this process. Madam, I know the debate has gone on for more than 13-14 hours. So I wish I could reply to every person who has said something, but that will take probably 28 hours, which will not permit me, and no one will like to participate in that. So I would like to cover the major points that have emerged from the debate. However, each of the points that has been mentioned has been noted by me personally or by my colleague, Mr. Manoj Sinha, and some of my officers, and will definitely make sure that we act on each of those which have been mentioned here. Madam, I am very thankful to the members of this House. Of course, they belong to the Treasury benches, but also belong to this part of the House, who have congratulated this budget and also said that this is the budget which really helps us to move forward. Why have they said this? Because that shows that railway is a national asset. We really need to develop railways in a way that is not politicized. Railway is something which should happen in a professional run, in a professional manner. And to make that happen, each of the members has expressed his keen interest. So this budget philosophy, in fact, was essentially that. We felt that railways need to be run in an extremely professional manner. All the investment decisions that railway make must take into account the aspirations and the hope of so many people, not just sitting here, but millions of people outside. But at the same time, we should run it in a way that railways will be able to cater to the demands for the short term, but also will be able to sustain itself commercially, economically in the medium and long term. And to make that happen, what was necessary was to have a type of consolidation for the railways, which we are trying to attempt in this budget. What is the consolidation? Madam, if you look at the discussion, the tone and the tenor of the discussion, and the content of suggestions, most of the people have said that there was an announcement in the budget. That announcement was never matched by any budgetary provision. There have been announcements made number of times of the same project. We all raised expectations, hopes, but we could not fulfill them only because the expectations were not fulfilled because there was no enough matching grant, matching amount to be provided. So the budget should be an exercise in which we should try to put where the mouth is, they should put some money where it is needed, and that's what we could not do, only because, and I not want to blame anybody because of this, is because the demand was so high and the resources were so scarce, so railway could not cater to it. And therefore, over a long period of time, there has been ongoing projects which will never be completed, it looks like, or could be completed at probably several times over than the original cost of the project. So initially some of the projects were not considered viable because the internal rate of return was not so good. But now, if you look at today's prices, then they will never be probably viable. So we have to therefore choose a process in which all the projects which are necessary for the railway's interest, all those who are interested in this project we need to undertake in the interest of the people who really need them. We must try to have a trade-off. How do you take projects which will help railways so that railways become commercially viable, more sustainable, so it can invest more. At the same time, the aspirations of the people must be taken into account. And that's a fine balance we need to achieve. And that's why in this budget we announced first that we'll take up such projects like doubling, like tripling, like something which will increase efficiency, which in short term will give benefit to the people. I know there are so many friends of mine, including my friend Dr. Satyapal Singh, who resigned his job as a police commissioner to join politics. I don't know whether he is now regretting it or not. But when he did that, he came and told me once, how do I travel from Delhi to Bagpat? The train runs at 20 kilometers an hour. Is it a train or a bullock cart? So that's a very good question. Now just imagine, why does it happen? There is a single track. Train stops at every station, because if every station people feel that why can train go from here but it cannot stop here. So as a result of that, the train never reaches the destination in desired time. So to make sure that we address some issues, we thought we must do doubling. Like there is a huge demand for doubling. Doubling would mean no new land acquisition. We can complete the project fast. The people demand of so many of them can be fulfilled very quickly. Railways will start earning revenue. If a new railway line costs about say 10 to 11 crores a kilometer, the line for doubling may cost only half of that. And therefore we can do it with better IRR, and that's what we did in consolidation, and I'm very happy that all of you have endorsed this idea and we are going to work on it. Sir, many people have said, and I'll come to that, about a dream, and I'll come to that. I'm very happy that people have raised this issue. I'll address it adequately. But the second point of this budget was short-term benefits without compromising long-term interest. And that's why I mentioned that this is what we are trying to do it in this manner. Safety was another great consideration. Many of you have said that so many people die by accidents, and that is something which is a serious matter. And I personally feel that I am also responsible as a railway minister if there is an accident which takes place. It may be easy to say that because unmanned level crossing, the railways have right of way, which is a fact. So if any vehicle is coming, it is actually intruding, it's a trespassing, but at the same time, a life lost is a too precious thing to be ignored. And therefore, in this budget, we have provided highest amount of money as well as attention to safety, and we are trying to do 3,400 unmanned level crossings we are trying to avoid, and also try to do the highest ever 970 RUBs and ROBs. In addition to that, some members made very good suggestions. Why not including my friend Mr. Chautal? He mentioned why not we use technology for this, and this is absolutely right. We have already created a partnership with RDSO, which is the Government of Railway Organization, and with ISRO, and with NRSA to find out how could we use geospatial technology to actually make it happen. If there is a moving object which is coming in, if we can know where our unmanned, when we send it to the moon, it can track it. Why we should not be able to track something which is moving on the surface and which is moving at a particular pace? We could alert, obviously, by sending sound as well as some light signals to the people who are crossing it. We are trying to work on that as well. But I am saying this is the topmost priority. I hope we succeed in eliminating them in the over period of time. Again, the fund being concerned, but still, despite all this, we have put 3,400 unmanned level crossing removal as a priority. Customer first has been a focus, because as you know, and many of you have said, that we must look at the face of the poor first. And that's what Mahatma Gandhi always used to say, that you should really look at his face and decide whether he is happy, then the society should be happy. And if that is the case, looking at his face, we really realize that we have to do much more than what we have been doing so far. And that's why we have provided so many things for customer services, which I don't want to repeat. Many of my colleagues from either side have mentioned about it. But customer is a focus, and that's why we want to do it. Again, railway cannot just be a commercial enterprise. Though many people would like to say that, but not in the House, of course, but many others outside. Railway has to be a socio-economic, political organization as well. We cannot ignore the reality that so many people in the country who may not be having enough purchasing power, but this is one of the big means of transportation for them. Like we say, this is a probably transport of last resort for the poor. And if it is the case, we must keep the character of social, economic, political of nature of these railways intact. To make that, the railways must be really strong enough. If you want the railway to serve the poor, you cannot serve the poor if poor feel that railway is a means of last resort and railway itself is not viable. How can railway then be serving the poor? So the best service that we can provide to the poor is by making railway strong financially, commercially, as well as technologically. And that's what we are trying to do in this budget. The other issue was transparency, and I think there we are really put a lot of focus on that. I would come to this. Some of the people have mentioned the railway, there is a lot of corruption. And I'm not denying that at all. I know it's a reality. All of us must work on it. We must make sure that we eliminate it. At least while we work for an elimination, we must try to take number of measures to reduce it. So first step that I said is, we delegated the powers to the general managers and everything, which I used to enjoy as a railway minister. But now we want to delegate the powers further to the DRMs, to the station master, as well as bring everything under the e-portal platform. If we can do everything which is e-tendered, we can really reduce the corruption in a significant manner. At the same time, if we can look at the corruption, which is one is at the high level, which we talk about. But the people suffer from corruption at low level as well. The TT taking 100 rupees, people really feel bad. So we are trying to push CCTV. There is now huge possibilities that whenever you are carrying a mobile, and you can use, because every mobile nowadays has camera, and there are 900 million telephone users. So therefore we can say that most of the travelers are also telephone users. So if you can use the camera, take a picture, all these pictures can be uploaded on the new portal that we have launched on Monday. I'll come to it, how the implementation is concerned. But that will make sure that we can actually make sure that we can track the person who is trying to harass a person, the RPF is not behaving properly, the women are troubled, all of that can be happen. So transparency is something which is the most important part, that we must try to do that in a proper manner. The long term and short term are both we are taken into account, and the commercial viability is already been put. In fact, talking about the poor, the general coach of 24 to increasing the number for at least 2 to 3 coaches, we already announced in the budget, which will be reserved for these poor people. So this is our focus. As the Prime Minister always believes that whatever we do, and as I said in my budget speech as well, that our first priority and the governance should really aim at reducing the adversities of the poor. And if we can succeed in doing that, automatically we'll be able to work on that. Some people have raised a larger issue. I don't know how much time you really have, but I'll just tell you in a few minutes, including my friend from Orissa. He mentioned about freight and fare issue. We feel that at the time of independence, we had a significant share, most dominant share was road, and then railway, and then we lost it to road over a period of time. We forget one important fact. This has nothing to do with commercial issues alone. This is largely because the road network at that time was not as big as it is today. Rail network did not expand from what it was at that time. The road network expanded rapidly. The investment that we made in road as a percentage of GDP was 3 times or 4 times higher than the investment that we made in railways. So the result is obvious. So this is nothing to do with only commercial, that we increase freight rate, that's why we lose the tariff. Plus, if you really look at it, and that's what my friend from Kerala was just now pointing out, if you just look at it, even if you want to bring more traffic from road to rail, you have the capacity to handle. And if you don't have the capacity to handle, what are we talking about? Rail ratios, and that's time to be generalized, reading somewhere that this is what is going to distort it. So to make that happen, if you really want to bring more cargo to rail from road, then you must invest in railways. You must increase the network, and that is what we are trying to do. So therefore, this is again a very important step that we are taking in this budget, which will again help us to do that. Some people, and rightly so, have asked me about operating ratio. Before that, let me tell you about an important issue that some of the person mentioned. I am really surprised that we talk about dream. I think everybody, our first Prime Minister of India also said, I had a dream. Then every other Prime Minister, right from Dalai Lama to anybody. So is it a crime to have a dream? Or this is not our dream alone, this is not my dream. What I mentioned in my budget speech, it is not a Prime Minister dream. This is a dream of India. All those millions of people who travel by railway, that is their dream, which we want to fulfill. But a dream alone will not be able to realize unless we have an action plan. And this budget is an action plan to realize that dream. But in this budget, some people, particularly Mr. Vedugopal, and just now you mentioned a very valid point, is what is the budget, because we had put large number of policy issues into the budget speech. I just want to tell you, this is a document issued by the budget manual, issued by the Ministry of Finance in September 2010, which says the budget essentially a presentation part. While presenting the budget on the scheduled day of the Lok Sabha, this is of course deals with Finance Minister, but that same thing applies to Railway Minister because Railway doesn't present. Makes a speech giving inter details of the proposal for the new financial year regarding taxation, borrowings and expenditure plans of the government. The budget speech is largely a policy document whereby the Finance Minister states the salient features of the financial administration of the year. So what I'm just saying, I don't want to read the whole thing, but what I said in my budget speech was not deviating something from what is not mentioned. What I mentioned in my the annexure was only to save the time of the House. I could read it if you wanted to read it, but I just did not do it. But what I mentioned is an operating ratio, which is the net result of the financial statement. End of the day, where do you arrive at a financial operating ratio? Operating ratio comes in because you have this statement of income and expenditure. In operating ratio, people have asked me how you arrived at this operating ratio. So I'll come to it a little later as to how we have increased the target, and when I come to the freight target, I'll explain to you in detail how we have done that. But we have done a number of other measures. This time, we have really concentrated on the expenditure side of the budget as well. We are trying to target the cost of energy. The electricity that the railway consumes is being bought at a very high rate. I used to be the power minister, and therefore when I became a railway minister, I said we are paying too much for the railways, because railway is the single largest users of energy, electricity, and paying the highest. It should be the other way around. If you go to the market and buy the highest, you buy 1,000 products and somebody is buying one, the person who is buying 1,000 will get a discount. So we were getting that, so we actually are targeting that. I already directed that they must work on, and I worked with Ministry of Power to make sure that this is properly in the government domain that we work on this. So this is one way. We also try to cost-cutting, outcome-oriented operation that we are trying to work on, and advertising and source of other revenues like that. That brings us to the important issue that some of you have mentioned, is where we got this target and where are you going to get this 1,200, rather the highest number of amount of tonnage that will handle. I must tell you something. This House itself, only in the last few days, and our Parliamentary Affairs Minister has been instrumental in helping all of you to pass that legislation, has passed two important legislation along with others. One was the coal ordinance, which now converted into law, converted into bill and now passed by the Lok Sabha. Other is the mining one. Madam, now as a consequence of this, there is going to be a huge movement of raw material from mines to the processing point. They will be manufactured, so there will be going to be movement of finished good from the manufactured point to the market, and as a result of which there is going to be a huge demand for railways. If the railways don't cater to this at this time, then we are not going to be making money. At the same time, all these activities also will not become to standstill, despite the fact that now we have created a legislative network. So therefore we created, and therefore I gave this target. I am very happy that my colleagues in the Railway Ministry have responded to it so well. This is something which will happen without any difficulty, we feel. Of course, there could be some issues. Again, on the customers and how they will be able to come on such a number. So already we are trying to increase, the presently carries 23 million passengers per day through 49 lakh berth seats. The generation of 5,87,251 additional berth seats per day constitute nearly 11.9% total carrying capacity. And that's why we are trying to increase the capacity by also putting in the number of coaches. All of this information is available there. So therefore this budget which has been prepared is not prepared on something, but it has been prepared on the basis of this. Again, the question, and a valid one, that you asked me just now, is how to increase from 1 billion tons to 1.5 billion tons. Essentially, this is because of the dedicated freight corridor, which should become operational, along with other measures that we are taking, this number of measures like doubling and tripling and other things, that would happen. This will easily be possible. And in fact, Rather than saying it is possible or not, we have to make it possible. Because if we do not have
Thank you. Now, Honorable Railway Minister, please. हो गया ना? आप ले करिए जल्दी.
Madam,
Yes.
I am of course thankful to you for giving me this opportunity to reply to such a very interesting, very engaging and very enlightening debate that took place in the last 2 days in this August House. And I'm very glad to see that almost more than half of the House participated in this debate. That shows the type of involvement that each of the members of this August House, the honorable members of the Parliament belonging to Lok Sabha, have in the railways. So I really first of all thank each one of you, those who participated, either speaking or by presenting or by listening to this debate that happened. Each of the members has expressed his keen interest. So this budget philosophy, in fact, was essentially that. We felt that railways need to be run in an extremely professional manner. All the investment decisions that railway make must take into account the aspirations and the hope of so many people, not just sitting here, but millions of people outside. But at the same time, we should run it in a way that railways will be able to cater to the demands for the short term, but also will be able to sustain itself commercially, economically in the medium and long term. In the last 2 days, I have shown a keen interest in railways. So on behalf of railway family, let me thank each one of you for being so engaged in this process. Madam, I know the debate has gone on for more than 13-14 hours. So I wish I could reply to every person who has said something, but that will take probably 28 hours, which will not permit me, and no one will like to participate in that. So I would like to cover the major points that emerged from the debate. However, each of the points that has been mentioned has been noted by me personally or by my colleague, Mr. Manoj Sinha, and some of my officers, and we'll definitely make sure that we act on each of those which have been mentioned here. Madam, I am very thankful to the members of this House. Of course, they belong to the Treasury benches, but also belong to this part of the House, who have congratulated this budget and also said that this is the budget which really helps us to move forward. Why have they said this? Because that shows that railway is a national asset. We really need to develop railways in a way that is not politicized. Railway is something which should happen in a professional manner, and to make that